Martin Scorsese's seminal 1980 sports drama Raging Bull is widely regarded as one of the greatest pieces of American cinema of the 20th century. Starring Robert De Niro, it is based on the real-life story of Jake LaMotta, a brilliant but volatile boxer whose rise to becoming a two-time middleweight boxing champion of the world coincides with his deteriorating personal life as a result of the titular rage which aids him in his boxing success. This contrast between LaMotta's life in the ring and the one he leads outside of it is a duality which lies at the center of the story's conflict. The rage which is presented as the primary trait of his character is both a benefit for his boxing career while also being a detriment to his relationships with his brother Joey and his wife Vicky, with these being the elements ultimately acting as catalysts for his eventual downfall. This duality is portrayed expertly through all elements of the film, namely in its sound, with deliberate strokes from sound designer Frank Warner and a tragic classical score by Robbie Robertson, aided by the iconic track Intermezzo from Cavaliere Rusticana by Pietro Mascagni. Film historian Todd Berlimer describes the opening sequence in which the track plays as instilling the boxing with a sense of lonely grandeur, a precursor for the solitary end which awaits our protagonist. This track is a highly contrapuntal one, with its sweeping classical nature juxtaposing the horrific violence and personal abominations shown on screen. Contrapuntal music is used throughout the film, namely in the domestic scenes depicting Jake's home life, where period-accurate jazz music coming out of tinny radios play in the background as the sounds of characters fighting and talking over each other drown the soundscape in chaos. In contrast, a technique which French theorist Michel Chion refers to as empathetic music is used in two key scenes in the film to mark two seismic moments, those being the home video montage and a scene which takes place at Jake's bar moments before Vicky arrives with their divorce papers. In the former, we hear a classical whimsical piece accompanying an idyllic vision of the life Jake could have maintained were it not for his rage, while in the latter, the song Lonely Nights by The Heart contains lyrics which directly parallel Jake's absence from and neglect of his family in favor of the vices which have come to consume him. Whilst these two scenes implemented the use of empathetic sound, there are also several examples of anempathetic sound in Raging Bull. Anempathetic sound is effectively used as a sound bed in two key scenes between Jake and Joey. The first of these scenes occurs when Joey tells Jake that he will have to take a dive in his next fight in order to have a shot at the World Championship title, a scene which carries a melancholic undertone as heavy rain pours down around the characters. The second key example of anempathetic sound takes place in the scene where Jake accuses Joey of having an affair with Vicky, where the sound of static from the broken TV remains constant in the background to underscore the uneasy tension in the room. Another two key techniques in Raging Bull are null extension and vast extension, both of which are utilized at multiple points throughout the film to align the viewer with Jake and get them into his headspace. Most examples of null extension in Raging Bull can be found in the boxing scenes. Here is Scorsese himself explaining his intentions for these scenes.
Primarily, it was based on, I came up with the idea when I was doing Last Waltz, being on the stage with the band, and watching how the band worked. The ballet sequences from Red Shoes, where you don't really necessarily go head to toe where you see the dancer. Instead, you see what's inside the mind of the dancer. What's in the mind and what's the perception of the fighter in the ring.
The sound in the boxing scenes frequently shifts between null extension and void extension as we transition between Jake's point of view and the roar of the crowd. This locks the viewer in on Jake and allows for us to experience the scene through him amidst all the chaos of the arena. Scorsese describes this silencing effect like a numbing effect, as if you were hit in the ear too many times. Another technique which Warner implemented in the boxing scenes was to emphasize Jake's inhuman nature and animalistic rage by including animal sounds into the mix. In an interview with David Wayshaw, sound re-recording engineer Donald O. Mitchell described how Warner used animal sounds such as a lion roar mixed over a man's scream. The results speak for themselves.
The jaw right to the body. Robinson comes back with a right on the nose.
Here is editor Thelma Schoonmaker discussing Warner's process.
Frank would create a different sound for each punch in this movie, and there are a lot of them, and audition various ones for Scorsese, who would then pick the one he wanted. We never got him to tell us how he made those punches, but they were perfect.
By including these more abstract noises, Warner allows for the boxing scenes to take on a far more surreal quality as we break away from the realism to instead experience the scene, as Scorsese put it, as if you were on another planet. While these animal noises are at first only heard in the boxing scenes, they eventually start to bleed into the scenes depicting Jake's domestic life. As described in an article from 2012, these sounds not only serve to link the violence on both sides of the ropes, but also to distinguish them. For example, when Jake brutally attacks Joey and Vicky after suspecting the two of them are having an affair with each other, the sounds of wailing animals previously heard exclusively in the boxing scenes reappear as Jake carries out this violent rampage. Thus linking Jake's two lives through the sound design and signaling to the viewer that these two worlds are merging, albeit this time the rage which this sound indicates is fueling his obsessive paranoia rather than his boxing success. To conclude, Frank Warner and the rest of the team responsible for the immaculate sound design of Raging Bull expertly implemented careful and deliberate uses of contrapuntal, empathetic, and unempathetic sound, along with null and void extension and creative uses of abstract sounds, to best articulate the central themes of the story and convey the intended mood of certain scenes, ultimately crafting a rich and layered soundscape which aids in the film's timelessness and iconic status.